Well, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to 2019. Woo! Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys are excited about the new year. If you're new here for the very first time, my name is Brett, and I am the lead pastor here at New Life Church, and I would love to meet you this morning. If I don't have the chance to meet you, there are a number of individuals out there with red lanyards on. You may have met them when you came in. And if you've been here for a while, I'd love to continue to hear your story and hear what God hopefully did for you over the last month, or maybe even over the last year. What was 2018 like for you? As we go into the new year, it's a time to kind of reflect. Think about the previous year, think about the upcoming year, and it's one of my favorite times of year. I love the very beginning of the year because you can look back and say, okay, God, what did you do over the last year? And really take time to evaluate and ask the question, what has happened in my life? What has changed? How have I grown? How have I regressed? Where have I gone back? Where do I need to move forward? And what does this new year hold? And so in our house, we do that regularly. In fact, my wife and I were talking this year. What was our favorite year together? What did we enjoy the most? And where did 2018 rank in that? And then what were the moments that really inspired us and changed us and made a difference in our lives? How about you guys? As you think about 2018, was there something specific in your life that changed your life or inspired you or motivated you in some way that's going to have an impact in 2019? Well, as I reflected this year, there was one specific thing that really had an impact on my life, and it was a story. If you've been here for a while, you've heard, I love stories. I love individuals' stories of how God has worked in their life. And in 2018, there was a story that really inspired me. And that story was of an individual by the name of Tyler Trent. Here's a picture of Tyler. Tyler was a major Purdue University fan, and I came to know Tyler, came aware of Tyler in October. But Tyler's story started many years before that. In fact, 4 years ago, Tyler was diagnosed with bone cancer. By doing something simple, he was throwing a frisbee, and as he threw the frisbee, his arm broke. And he realized that he had a very serious, as doctors found, a very serious form of bone cancer. So they went in, they did surgery, they removed the tumor, he went through chemo, and everything was good. Cancer went into remission. Until 2 years later, he broke his pelvis and realized that it was back. They went in, did the same thing, surgery, chemo, cancer went into remission, and shortly after that, they found it in his spine. At that point, there was no opportunity to do surgery, so they went through chemo a couple more times and got to a place where they realized there was nothing they could do. They said, Tyler, live your life to the full. Well, Tyler did exactly that. In fact, from the very beginning, when he found out he had cancer, he said, you know what, I'm not going to let this hold me back. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to live life to the fullest. And so he was a huge Purdue fan. And so in the middle of going through chemo, he decided that he was going to camp out to get the very best Purdue football tickets he possibly could, which you don't actually have to camp out to get those tickets. True. They're not hard to come by, especially for the students. Purdue was having a tough year, and so to get good seats as a student, you just needed to show up at the door and you could walk right in. But Tyler and a buddy of his decided to camp out, and they set up a tent and they stayed overnight so they could get the very first tickets. Well, the head football coach noticed and went, that's weird. Nobody camps out for our games. I'm going to go talk to them. And so he went and he talked to Tyler and his buddy, and after a couple of games, he started up a conversation, and through that, he heard Tyler's story. And so he decided to give Tyler the very best seats in the house, and he made Tyler an honorary captain of the Purdue football team and put him on the sideline with the team. As Tyler continued to progress, he was confined to a wheelchair, and so it was in October that I became aware of Tyler when Purdue played Ohio State. SportsCenter caught word of Tyler's story. They put him on SportsCenter, and Tyler made the prediction that Purdue would beat Ohio State, which is a crazy prediction because they were 14-point underdogs. Ohio State was undefeated. They were on their way to a national championship, and Purdue routed them, 49-20. And many people say it's because they rode the energy of Tyler to win the game. Well, that shot him to national stardom. And he was traveling all over the United States. The owner of the Colts was flying him on his private jet to football games. He was on all sorts of different award shows. Every college football award program Tyler was a part of. He won a Courage Award. Purdue started a cancer endowment in his name to figure out how to cure pediatric cancer, and overnight it raised $100,000. And Tyler lived every moment to its full. And interview after interview after interview with him, he was asked, what keeps you going? And he said two things, faith and prayer. That I'm living on faith, and I'm praying that God will change me. And if not, I'm going to continue to live until it's time to go home. And as I watched his interviews over and over and over again, he had a very similar message each time. And I'm paraphrasing him, but it was to this essence. Tyler kept telling people, never stop, keep going forward, keep moving, because every day you have breath is a day worth living. Never stop, keep moving. And he did just that. Every day he was breathing, he lived it. And people started coming to his house, and he was inviting super famous and very influential individuals into his home. You know what he did with as many of them as he possibly could? He prayed with them. And he told them about his faith. And he told them why he kept going. And he was an inspiration to many, including myself. Well, January 1st of 2019, Tyler's time on earth came to an end. And yet his story will continue on. His story of impact, his story of not willing to stop, his story of continuing on and sharing what God was doing in his life all the way to the end will continue on. And up to this point today, many of you had never heard of Tyler Trent, but now you have. And hopefully as we go into 2019, Tyler's story will impact each and every one of us, and that we will take his words to heart, that we will be individuals that never stop, that we keep moving forward, that every day that we have breath is a day worth living. And I share that story with you because as we come to the beginning of 2019, it's a time where we can reevaluate and say, okay, what am I going to do with tomorrow? What am I going to do with this year? What is that going to look like? And for us as a church, it's an opportunity to continue forward. And not just as a church, but New Life as a whole. It's our time to continue to ask the question, where are we going? What are we doing? How are we continuing to move forward? And there's a number of ways, a number of new things going into 2019 that I'm excited to share with you. First one being, you're sitting in it. What? Many of you probably didn't notice, but this whole room and hallways were painted over the last couple of weeks. Woo! We had a team of 6 to 7 individuals over the last 2 weeks that came in and volunteered their time to give this worship center and the surrounding area a little bit of a facelift. Can anybody tell me what the old color was? Yeah, nobody really knew. It didn't have a name. It was like peach or orange or brown or one of those colors. And so we came in and said, you know what, we're gonna freshen it up a little bit. We want to go into 2019 with a little bit of a clean start. And it's amazing what a fresh coat of paint will do. We didn't add a single chair to the space, and yet it feels bigger, doesn't it? Now that you've noticed, it's like, oh, there's more room. Except for the fact that today it's full, and so you're sitting right next to the person next to you, which is great. You know what? It makes the chairs not so green. Nah, it doesn't do that. They're still green. But it kind of gives you a new sense of, all right, where is this taking us? Where are we going? Well, there's a number of things, like I said. The second thing is, not only is there a fresh coat of paint, but there are a number of things, new things that our missionaries in 2019 will have to continue to spread the message of the gospel. And so at the end of the year, we did a Gift for Jesus offering. And we challenged New Life Church to give to a number of different projects. We had missionaries come in this summer, and we sat down with each one of them and said, what do you need? What are real life, tangible things that we can do as a church to help you where you're at, to continue to spread the message of the gospel? And they were open and vulnerable and said, we want this. And they gave us a huge list of things. And so our missions team sat down and looked at all the things that they had given us and said, what can we provide for them? And guess what they came to the conclusion of? We want to give them everything. We want to give them all that they asked for. And so they sent me back the list and said, hey, here's all the things we'd love to bless our missionaries with. And when I saw the list, I'll tell you, I was very skeptical. In fact, I immediately went, wow. You're asking for what? And so the total number came to $35,000. $35,000 of things that our missionaries were asking for to help continue to share Jesus with the world all over the place, here in the United States and far, far away. And so I actually sent it back and said, hey guys, in case we don't get that, do we have a backup plan? We have a list of things that we can kind of go back to and say, all right, instead of this, we're going to do this, and how about this? Because the grand total over the last 2 years that we had taken in our Gift for Jesus offering was $36,000. And here in 1 year, we're asking for 35. Well, we have a little bit of a problem as we go into 2019. We have too much money. So instead of wondering what we're going to do with $35,000, we got to wonder what we're going to do with $44,000. The final total was just shy of that. $43,965 was raised to help our missionaries continue to move forward with what it is that God has for them where they're at. So now we got to sit down and go back to the missions team and say, hey, what can they do with an extra $9,000? That's awesome. What a fantastic problem to have as you guys stood up and said, hey, we want to make this happen. Which is exactly the heart of the church. And over the last 18 months, we've seen that. Last year in January, we rolled out a new mission statement. We want to help people find new life in Christ here, near, and far, with priorities to challenge everybody to pursue, connect, serve, and reach. And so over the last year, we then said, okay, so where does that lead us? What does that look like? Where are we going with that? So once we've helped them find new life in Christ, once we've challenged them to those priorities, what's the end goal? What's the big vision out there? And so we sat down, we talked to a lot of people, our missionaries included, saying, hey, what is it that you want to see New Life become? What do you want this place to be for years and years and years as we look forward? And guess what everybody told us? We want it to be what it's been for years and years and years before us. And that's that this place has been a refuge for individuals to find new life in Christ, but then a launching pad to send them out into the world. To send people out into the world in the name of Jesus to change it. And so as we stand here in January 2019, we're rolling out a new vision statement to go along with our mission and our priorities. And that vision is to be a sending center. We want to be a place where we send people out in the name of Jesus to change the world. But guess what? We've been doing that for years. We're just now putting on paper saying that's going to be the heart of who we are, which is exactly what the Gift for Jesus offering it tells me, is that we have a huge heart for that. But here's the caveat to it. It's not just missionaries that we're going to be sending out. It's not just graduates of the academy. It's just not individuals in our homeschool ministry or people that come into our Bible studies. It's every single person sitting in the seats of this church right now and every single person that walks through the doors of this facility at any given moment. That our hope is that anybody comes in here will find new life in Christ, that they will be challenged to pursue, connect, serve, and reach, and that when they leave here, they will go out wherever they go to change the world. And that means that's us together doing that. And that years from now, success will be that we will look back as we can now, over 1,300 graduates from the academy. Over 1,400 families or individuals that have been a part of families that have been a part of our homeschool ministry. A current reach of 3,000 individuals on a weekly basis that we impact with the message of the gospel, with the challenge to go where it is that God has you to change the world right where you're at. And my hope, 30 years from now, and that's my prayer, God, keep me here for 30 years. That 30 years from now, when I look back, success will be every single one of us, and myself included, going where God has us so we can change the world. So how do we do that? What's the structure around that for us? Well, first thing is Sundays. We're going to continue to focus on that here on Sundays. But then we've crafted now, throughout our week, opportunities for individuals to get connected. And that's a big part of this. I want to challenge every single one of you to be here like you are right now every Sunday. Let's pack this place out. Let's go to 2 services. No, I don't want to go to 2 services. Let's just make one really, really full. How does that sound? We'll sit on each other's laps. We'll hold hands. We'll sing Kumbaya. We'll do all that. Hey, we got a really good thing going right now. I want to stay here in one service as long as we possibly can, so keep packing it out. Let's be here on Sunday, but then the challenge is that every single one of us needs a touch point somewhere else within the week. That we need a place that we can connect with individuals, that we can be challenged, that we can serve, and that we can reach, and that there's somebody speaking into your life going, how are you doing that? And do you need to pick it up in this area? Are you doing well in this area? Encouraging you, helping you to continue to pursue, connect, serve, and reach. And so you're going to hear that all year long. Be here on Sunday, get involved one other point throughout the week. And maybe that's a class on Sunday morning. We have them available, as you heard Dave say. Get involved on Sunday mornings, but we've now provided offerings throughout the whole week. Look at it in your bulletin as you open it up. There's something almost every day of the week that you can get plugged into. If there isn't something there, we also have our life groups that are available. Get involved in one other thing throughout the week because we need those individuals there challenging us, pushing us forward so that we will be a place that changes the world. It's like, all right, great, Brett. That's awesome, fantastic. We're going to change the world. Well, how do we do it? Well, we've got the structure in place. We've got the words there. Now, what's the formula? What are the ingredients for changing the world? Well, guess what? I'm going to share that with you today. In fact, I've been told personally by God the formula to change the world. And he said 2 things. You know what they were? Love God and love people. Right? Mind blown. I just gave you the formula to change the world. Exciting? No? Yes? Maybe? Crazy thing is, it's simple. It's super simple. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing chaotic. It's not huge. It's actually very small and very easy. And God tells us over and over and over again, I'm asking 2 things of you. Love God, love people. If you do those things really, really, really well, you will change the world. And so we're going to be a place that does those 2 things. And the beauty of it is the Bible is full of ways to tell us how to do that. So that's what we're going to get into today. We're continuing our series in Joshua. We're in Joshua chapter 7. Kind of do a up to speed sort of thing. It's really easy. In the desert, no longer in the desert, in the promised land, and now they're moving forward. If you want to know what happened up through chapter 7, read the first 6 chapters of Joshua. And there's my recap. Pretty awesome, huh? And so now we're at 7. And a little bit more detail. They've gone through a lot of stuff to get here. They've had to rely on God. God is with them and says, I will be with you all the way to the end as long as you follow my law, as long as you work with me. It's a partnership. We're in this together. And so he's with them. They go into Jericho. A miracle happens, and the Israelites were able to take over Jericho, and now they're moving forward. Now they're continuing to move forward. As God has said, this is the land that I have for you. But we've seen through all of it a patient, loving, caring God who has given opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to everybody through this situation to know who he is, to know his love, to understand the depths of his riches, the depths of his glory, the depths of his caring for us as individuals. And so we've seen that over and over and over again. And now we're here. They've just gotten past Jericho, and we're going to continue our story. So Joshua 7, 1 through 9. So we're going to start in verse 1. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Pause. The Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Isn't that just the way it always works out? Isn't that kind of the plight of mankind? Things are going really well. In fact, if you were to trace the trajectory of where the Israelites are at this moment, they are on a very fast trajectory up. Things are going really, really, really well. And then we hit this wall in verse 7. But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. What were the devoted things? Well, in verse 6, it tells us the devoted things was pretty much everything in the city of Jericho. And what were they devoted to? They were devoted to the glory of God. And they were to be destroyed. And there was nothing to be kept except certain things that God had said, put these in the treasury of the temple. But everything else was supposed to be eliminated. In fact, it was very clear. God gave specific instructions. In fact, if you were with us right before Christmas, you heard as Joshua said, shout, so the walls would fall of Jericho. There was this anticlimactic moment, this moment where you kind of hit a pause. And that's exactly where God says, but don't touch the devoted things. Because if you touch the devoted things, if you hold on to them, you will bring destruction upon yourself, your family, and the whole nation of Israel. Pretty clear warning. How many think could follow that warning? Anybody? Most of us. Well, actually, no, none of us could follow that warning because we're all sinful human beings that will do this exact things. They're unfaithful in it. So what happens? This nice, shiny, bright thing shows up and, ooh, I got to have it. I want that. Even with the warning that there's going to be ramifications if you hang on to some of the devoted things, a majority of them listened, one individual did not. Verse 2, Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of them. So the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Oh, man. God said this exact thing was going to happen. They'd been given the warning, and we see, like I said, the plight of all humanity. Something better than what God said showed up, and so I'd rather have that, even if it means there's consequences to my actions. And so here's what's cool about this story. We now have information that nobody else has. These first two verses, the writer is giving us what one commentator said, the reader's edge. We have the reader's edge. We're reading into the story information that nobody in the story has except for us. Joshua does not know this. The warriors do not know this. Maybe the people that are around Achan know this. His closest confidants might know what it is that he's done. But you and I are now privy to something that nobody else knows. We know they were unfaithful to the devoted things. Achan took a couple of them, and now God is angry. So what happens? Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth Aven to the east of Bethel, and told them, go up and spy out the region. So the men went up and spied out Ai. When they returned to Joshua, they said, not all of the army will have to go up against Ai. Send 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it, and do not weary the whole army, for only a few people live there. So about 3,000 went up. But they were routed by the men of Ai, who killed about 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people melted in fear and became like water. Then Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down to the ground before the ark of the Lord, remaining there till evening. The elders of Israel did the same and sprinkled dust on their heads. And Joshua said, alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Pardon your servant, Lord. What can I say now that Israel has been routed by its enemies? The Canaanites and the other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe out our name from the earth. What then will you do for your own great name? I want to pause there for a second because I want to look at a few aspects of this story before we continue on. First is Israel's about to go into battle again, right? We see this. They just came out of Jericho. They're about to go into battle again. But as we have seen, we have the reader's edge. This battle's different. This battle's different because God is angry at the Israelites because of the actions of an individual who did something God said don't do. And yet, nobody knows this. Joshua doesn't know this. The warriors that are about to go fight this battle don't know this. The spies don't know that this is taking place. And so the spies go in and say, we've spied it out. And this time they give a very positive response. You know what? We don't have to worry about it. There's so few of them. We only need to take like 3,000 people, which is a very small number in comparison to the number of individuals that were probably with the Israelites at the time. 3,000 people will do it. We'll go up there. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be easy. Let's let the rest of the soldiers rest so they don't have to get weary. So when a challenge actually comes up, we'll be able to handle it. And so as you read through this, it could be very easy to sit there going, man, they sound a little arrogant, don't they? They sound like they've gotten over their skis a little bit. They're kind of leaning forward going, woo, look at me. Well, guess what? If you know how to ski, if you do that, you're in trouble. It might look cool, but it's not going to get you anywhere. And so they're sitting here kind of like, man, we've got this. Spies come back. Let's just take a couple. Going to be no big deal. We'll go up. Joshua's like, sweet, let's do it. So were they overconfident, or were they just super confident in the fact that God was going to be with them? As I read through this, I would actually argue the latter. I think from what they just saw in Jericho, they know God is with us. We've got this. We don't need to take the whole army because God's on our side, so we can go up real quick, and if God is with us, who can be against us? Here we go. And so they go forward. Again, not knowing the information that you and I have. Second thing we see then is as they go into this battle, confident that God is with them, they send this small number of individuals, and they're immediately defeated. And not just like it was one of those battles back and forth and it was close. Like, no, this was a rout. Kind of like Ohio State losing to Purdue. It was a rout. What's interesting is the terminology, the verbiage here is very much in the sense of they got absolutely destroyed. But as you start reading the details, it doesn't actually kind of add up that way. If they took 3,000 people, it says that only 36 of them were killed. Well, that doesn't sound like a rout to me. I mean, being 14-point underdogs and losing by 29 points, or 14-point, Purdue was underdogs and they win by 29 points, that's a rout. That's a destruction. These individuals lost 36 of the 3,000, and I'm terrible at math, as many of you know. That's just over 1% of the population. Doesn't sound horrible, but it was a rout. In fact, Joshua calls it a rout, and we see that as the third thing here, that his response seems a little over the top. They come back from just getting routed. They've only lost 36 people, and Joshua is beside himself. He lays down in front of the ark until evening, so we don't know how long it was that he was there, but he's face down in front of the ark, just destroyed, in distress, and the elders join him, seeing how distressed he is. They do the same. They tear their clothes. They're in mourning. Because I would tell you that 36 people may not seem like a lot statistically, but whenever you lose one, it's enough to be destroyed about. And so here they've lost fellow men. They've lost individuals that they went into this battle confident that God was with them. And here Joshua responds in a way that you're sitting there going, man, that sounds like my kids. Throwing a fit because I punished them or they didn't get what they want. And here Joshua is prostrate before the Lord going, God, why have you done this to us? Oh, that we had not come into this land. Oh, we should have just stayed on the other side of the Jordan. Why is this happening to us? Well, it makes a lot of sense if you go back to think that they were confident in the fact that God was with them. Because if God was with them and they go into this battle and they lose this battle, why is it a big deal? Because it's a very clear sign that God was no longer for them. And that's the issue. That as they're in the middle of this, it's very clear to Joshua that God, you are no longer for us. And if you are no longer for us, we are in trouble. We have no hope. We're in a foreign land. We are foreign people in a foreign territory. We don't know the terrain. We don't know how to get about. We don't have any supplies. We have nothing. The only thing we have is you, God, and if we don't have you, we are in trouble. And so in that context, seeing what happens here is exactly what should be happening as they were routed, regardless of how bad the battle actually was, because with God on their side, they should have won. They did not. God is no longer with them. They are in some serious hurt. And so before we go on to see what that means in the context of how that plays itself out, I want to take a look real quick at a couple things that we can learn from this situation. Specifically, as we go into 2019, as we see this story, what is it that we can take out of this for ourselves in this new year that will hopefully change the way that we view what we're about to do in 2019. The first one is this. Very first thing that I want us to pay attention to in this new year is that our actions impact others. As we see this story, as we go back to the very beginning, we see that God sets up this through the author of Joshua, sets up what we need to know at the very beginning. And what was at the very beginning? Because of one man's action, God was upset. Because of one man's decision to take what it is that he shouldn't have taken, now God is upset. And that gives us a lens to view this story through. Those are markers for us. The first thing I want us to take away from that is based off of those first two verses, we can understand in our own lives that our actions impact others. Achan's actions impacted a number of individuals, which God said would happen. Back in chapter 6, he says, if you do this, if you hang on to the devoted things, it will be against you and your family and the whole nation of Israel. And Achan said, cool, that's great. I really like this shiny object. And he took it and he held on to it. And so we can learn from this in the sense that our actions today do the same thing Achan's actions did then. They impact others. Our actions have consequences for the individuals around us. And not just individuals in our closest family, but individuals in the community at large. Here at New Life, in Woodbury, in Minnesota, our actions impact others. And so the natural question coming out of this, though, is that fair? In our individualistic society, as we look at this story and we understand that our actions impact others, I think the first question many of us would ask is that fair? I don't like that. That kind of makes me uncomfortable. I want to be able to do what I want to do whenever I want to do it, and I don't want to have to think about the person next to me because guess what? Then all of a sudden, I start feeling bad. And my conscience might kick in, and I got to think about what I do is going to impact you and you and you and you and you. And I don't really want that because that's just way too much responsibility. So let's just argue over the fairness of it or not. And if I could, in my own way, I'd say, you know what, that doesn't actually happen because that's not fair. I don't want to think about it. But guess what? We can't even ask that question. Is it fair isn't even a question because asking, is it fair that my actions impact others is asking the question, or like asking the question, is it fair that I have to breathe oxygen? Oh, it's so annoying. It really is. How many people want to breathe underwater? That would be awesome. I'd love to go underwater. In fact, I saw Mary Poppins Returns a couple days ago. And there's a scene where they do that exact thing. It was my favorite part of the movie. They dive into a bathtub and poof, they're underwater. That would be great. So why can't I do that? I just can't. It's not possible. It's not the way I was made. I don't like gravity. I wish I could fly. That's not possible either. Unless I jump out of a plane or do something else. I can't do either of those things. So asking the question, is it fair, isn't even necessary. Same thing when it comes to whether my actions impact somebody else or not. It's not even a question. I can't ask whether it's fair or not because it just is. It exists. It's a part of reality. It's part of our societal norms where my actions impact you. Put in perspective this year, 2018, as you look back, what were some of the things that you didn't like about 2018? My 401k. That's one of the things I did not like about 2018. If any of you are into that stuff, you probably looked at your 401k and you wanted to cry because you had a number at the beginning, you put in a number, and by the end of the year, guess what? It was lower than both of those. How's that possible? I had this amount, and then I put in this amount, and it's still less than both amounts combined? But guess who jacked up my 401k? The president, Apple, the king of Saudi Arabia, who decided to stop oil production and partner with other countries within the nation. How dare they do that to my 401k? Oh! And guess what I can do about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Except read the outlook for 2019 and go, okay, Lord, hopefully it goes back up. Well, that's the way life is. It just is. There are things in your life, actions that other people do that impact you that there's nothing you can do about. Well, take it and look internally at who you are. If you examine who you are and where you're at today, how many outside forces, how many people's actions other than your own influenced where you're sitting right now? And the answer is a lot. A lot. Your personality is driven a little bit by you, but a lot of it from your mom and dad. Where you're sitting right now, the job you have or the opportunity you have was probably because another person made this decision or that decision or this decision. I met my wife because a guy picked up the phone and said, "You want to go on a date?" And she goes, "No." And then she's like, "I need an excuse," and looks at me and goes, "Will you be that excuse?" And I said, "Yes." And now I'm married to her. What if that guy had never called, or what if she had said yes? We would be in a completely different situation. And it was because of somebody else's actions that led to where I am today. It's a part of life. Our actions impact others. You have been impacted by somebody else, and what you are doing today impacts other people along the way as well. And so as we go into 2019, I want that to be something that we focus on. As we talk about the formula to change the world, love God and love people, we have to be individuals that play a role in that. Our actions make a difference in the lives of others as we love God and we love people. And we need to be very much aware of that. Second thing then, as we go into this new year, our actions not only impact others, but our actions reflect upon God. Achan's decision has impacted now 36 people that lost their lives, and the whole nation of Israel is in an interesting situation because God is upset with them. And yet, as you see Joshua, he says two things. God, why are we here? And so he's upset about the fact that the battle has been lost, but he says something else that's very interesting. God, if we are destroyed, what will you do for your great name? Man, what a question. See, not only was Joshua upset that what they had done was wrong, and we'll see in a little bit here of what that means, but he's also sitting there going, God, if we are destroyed, do you know how that reflects upon you? What then will you do for your great name? And the way that it's phrased here is there's this agony about it. God, I have brought distress. I have brought shame upon your name. What are you going to do about it? God, how are you going to make this right? And there's a burden that I carry for that. And that's the second thing that I want to be thinking about as we go into 2019. As we love God and love people, our actions impact others, and our actions reflect upon God. When people look at us, they're not just looking at you, they're looking at your behavior, wondering who is the God that they serve? Who is the God that they say they believe in, and what are their actions telling me as they move forward in their lives? Again, just like previously, we could ask the question, is it fair? But that question shouldn't even be asked because it doesn't even matter. It just is. I can't get around it. How are we expecting people to see God in this world today? They have to see us to know who he is. I said this a number of months ago. Our responsibility is making the invisible visible. Our responsibility as believers is to make the invisible visible. People need to see who Jesus is through us. They need to know who God is through our behavior. And whether we like it or not, we impact people in that way a lot. Especially, and I'm going to speak specifically to dads in this room today. Studies have shown over and over and over again that the view that your child will have of God is directly based off of how they view you. Oh, what a burden. And yet what a blessing at the same time, because as we see in this story, there's negative issues with it, but there's also positive issues with it. And what do I mean by that? Well, just as Adam's sin, like Achan, impacted the whole, we now have to deal with sin because of what Adam did. Jesus stepped in because of one man's action. Now we have the ability to be righteous. And just as one person can make a decision that negatively impacts others, one person can make a decision that positively impacts others. That people view them and they see God in a way that they've never seen him before, and they're changed radically for years and years and years to come. Which is why our stories are so important and why our actions matter. Tyler Trent had no idea I was watching his life. And yet I will be ever changed because of him. And I see God's hand in the middle of it in a way that, again, continues to broaden my understanding of who God is in a situation where it can be hard at times, and yet he's glorified in such a beautiful way that people all over the world were impacted because of who he was. And we can be people like that. We can be individuals that not only impact negatively, but also impact positively. So as we love God and love people, we can change the world. So how do we do that? First one is we need a mind shift. We need a mindset change. We need to hold on to this and understand this and think about this regularly. It's so easy to get caught up in focusing on myself. What do I want? Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? How do I want to get there? And if we're going to change the world, my challenge, especially here in America, is we need to change our minds. We need to do things differently. We need to be thinking about those two things. How do I love God and love people every day? And for many of us, we literally have to change our minds. We literally need a mind shift. I didn't say we need Minecraft. We need a mind shift. And we need to be thinking that what I do every day, both positively and negatively, is going to have an impact on the whole community, on my family, on the individuals I work with, on the person I interact with at the grocery store. I have the ability every day to go out and have an impact based off of my actions, but I need to understand that. So once I have understood that, then we need a behavior change. This is a perfect time of year to do it. As I look then to think about how are my actions impacting others and reflecting on God, what behaviors do I need to change, both positive and negative? What can I be doing more of positively? And I can tell you very easily, for me, I need to be a better encourager. I'm a woo guy at times, but I don't necessarily tell people in my life, you're doing a fantastic job. I love you. Keep it up. And so positively, I can impact my family as they sit here today. McKenna, I love you. And yet my natural thought is, I want to go to all the things I want to tell her to get better at. But you're becoming a beautiful woman. And Alexa, make sure you remind me not to cry when I get up here on Sunday, all right? And yet negatively, then I know, as my kids are getting older and there's things I'm sitting there going, don't do that, guess why they do it? This guy. Don't respond emotionally to that situation. Why not, Dad? You do it. You cry every Sunday. Good point. Still trying to keep my emotions in check. But those are things that we need to look at our behaviors going, once I've changed my mind and I understand that everything I do is impacting somebody else, and I view it in a way where I then own it and say, I will do something about it. I need to change my behavior, which then brings us a third one. I need to own all of my actions in obedience and disobedience to God and understand that it makes a difference. And here's the deal. Even if it impacts one person, it makes a difference. Impacting one person can change the world. And there are many people in each and every one of our lives. And so we've got to own our actions and say, God, I will today understand that as I go out, what I do is impacting others and reflecting on you. And so what does that need to look like? So where do I come up with that list? How do I know what those things are? Well, I can't tell you that. That's a personal thing, but I can tell you, as you pursue God every day, as you connect in community, as you serve each other and as you share your story, as you reach others, God will show those things to you. The end of 2018, God made it abundantly clear what my list in 2019 is. And I know going into 2019, here's the things that I need to specifically focus on because my actions have consequences for others. And so I want, and my hope and my prayer, not just for myself, but for all of us, that as we go out in 2019, as we are a place that's sending people out to change the world, that we do that. And it starts right here. That we begin internally to look at that we understand who we are, how we're reflecting on God, that then in community we're coming together saying, how do we do that together? What does that look like? And we're challenging each other forward because as we change our lives first and then impact the people around us, we will change the world. I guarantee it. Because that's what God's hope is for us, that we will reflect upon him so the world will see him and all will know. And I can't wait to see how he does that here at New Life. So how do our actions impact others? To what level are consequences? How does this story resolve itself? What happens to Achan? What happens to his family? What's God's thought on all the stuff that's going on? Well, guess what? That's for next week. You have to come back and find out. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for who you are.